Hey, welcome. Criminal Justice 220 Intro to Criminal Law students. This is our first video lecture for full term here in 2025. My name is Dr. Koopman, and many of you might have already taken CJ101 Intro to Criminology from me. And if so, I welcome you back. If you're new to a course offered by me, just by way of a brief introduction, my courses look very similar in organization, and that's very intentional. They have learning guides attached, PowerPoints, and very similar assignments. There's discussion boards mixed in with essay assignments, can be journal article reviews, can be, in this case, with CJ220, there's going to be some case evaluations or case analysis. But I just want to welcome everyone, and I also want to give you a quick update. I'm broadcasting, so to speak, or recording this video from my home office back on my ranch in Eastern Oregon. I miss being a dean, but you know, it was time to retire. I'm at retirement age. Let's put it that way. Definitely in my mid to late 60s, and I still love education. And so the college has graciously allowed me to keep teaching criminal justice. I would love to teach education as well, but you know, we're all doing what we can. So in the future, hopefully by next week, I'll have some decorations up on this very blank wall behind me, and we'll make it look like a real office, just like I had at the college. So again, welcome everyone. I'm going to go through a couple quick housekeeping chores, and then we're going to get right into today's lecture, which is on chapter 1, and it's just going to be a nice little highlight. Just some housekeeping chores. If you haven't bought your textbook yet, please get that, and hopefully you've been able to do that through the ebook version, which is way more affordable, that you paid for when you registered for the course. Secondly, please walk through the Canvas course shell in detail so you know your way around with the quizzes, with the discussion boards. And again, if you have any questions, hit me with an email. I'll be happy to even have a little Zoom chat with you if needed. I am semi-retired. I've got a more flexible schedule, especially this first term. So just know that I'm here to help you. I love teaching. I love SWOC. I love everything about Southwestern. And so I still want to support what we're doing there at the college. All right, without further ado, let's get into our video lecture for this week, and there'll be many more like this in the coming weeks. Understanding the foundations of U.S. criminal law. This is basically talking points from chapter 1. In today's lecture, we're going to look at the foundations of U.S. criminal law, and our goal is to go beyond just definitions and statutes, and we want to understand how the law functions in society and why it reflects both our ideals and our challenges. And I need to take a quick sip of my coffee. Perfect. By the end of this session, you should be able to describe the dual nature of criminal law in the U.S. You should be able to distinguish between criminal and non-criminal sanctions, classify crimes and understand the implications of those classifications, identify main sources of criminal law, reflect on what behaviors deserve criminal punishment and why, and understand key theories behind punishment, and finally apply the text case method to your study of criminal. I'm going to repeat that. The text case method. That's where we pull up court cases that are in text and we read them and we analyze them. All right. The dual nature of U.S. criminal law. Criminal law in the U.S. has definitely a dual social reality. On the one hand, it's a system of rules and procedures and a technical framework created by legislatures and interpreted by courts. But on the other hand, it also reflects our collective imagination about crime, justice, and punishment. What do we mean by imagination? Well, think about how crime is portrayed in the media. It gets labeled, or who gets labeled as a criminal, who doesn't. This imagined reality shapes how laws are written, enforced, and punished. Our laws don't exist in a vacuum. They reflect deep social values, fears, and priorities. Non-criminal sanctions. Let's break those down. The difference between criminal and non-criminal sanctions. Criminal sanctions involve formal punishments by the state, things like imprisonment, fines, or even the death penalty. They carry a moral stigma and a criminal record. Non-criminal sanctions, on the other hand, are usually civil and administrative in nature, such as regulatory fines, license suspensions, or community-based penalties. The purpose of criminal sanctions is not just to punish, but it's also to deter, rehabilitate, or incapacitate. Non-criminal sanctions often aim to correct behavior without invoking the full weight of the criminal justice system. How do we classify crimes and their ramifications? Crimes can be classified in various ways. There's infractions. Those are minor offenses, often punishable with fines. There's misdemeanors, less serious crimes, but they are punishable by up to 1 year in jail. And then felonies. These are the more serious crimes with the potential for long-term imprisonment or even capital punishment. Why does the classification matter? Because the legal and social consequences escalate significantly. A felony conviction, for example, can result in a long-term loss of civil rights, like voting, owning firearms, or even employment opportunities. These labels affect people far beyond their time in court. All right, moving on to the main sources of criminal law. Number one is our constitutional law, the foundation. It sets limits on what laws can be created and how they're enforced. Then we move to statutory law, laws passed by legislative bodies at both federal and state levels. And then case law, or otherwise known as common law, a judicial interpretation and then precedents that come from that fill in the gaps or questions of what maybe statutes or how statutes can be applied. And then finally, there's a model penal code. And this is kind of the newest iteration. It's been around a while, but it's a model set of criminal laws developed to standardize and modernize state statutes. However, they are not binding. Those can be very fluid and adaptable. Understanding all four sources helps us navigate not only what the law is, but why it operates as it does. All right, so what behavior does criminal punish? Or what behavior deserves criminal punishment? This is both a legal and a moral question. What behaviors should be criminalized? Well, that answer has changed over time, sometimes drastically. We once criminalized things like same-sex marriage or certain drug use, and we've decriminalized others. This brings us to a critical modern issue, which is mass imprisonment. The U.S. has one of the highest incarceration rates in the world. Policies like mandatory minimums and the war on drugs have led to disproportionate incarceration, especially among communities of color. Recognizing these social consequences is key to understanding today's criminal law landscape. I cannot emphasize that point enough. We are living in a very fluid time, especially in our western states, where cashless bail, release or no incarceration until waiting trial is really happening. And it's definitely having an impact. There are those that really believe, from a social justice perspective, that cashless bail and very limited incarceration is the right way to go. And there are others that really feel there needs to be more accountability. So we are seeing some real strong conversations on the national level. All right. So What theories of criminal punishment what theories of criminal punishment exist? It's two main branches, and that's retribution versus prevention. These are the two major philosophies that guide how we punish adjudicated criminals. Retribution, that's the idea that people deserve punishment because they've done wrong. It's a backward looking, that's not a negative term, that's just, historically looking. And it's focused on moral accountability. So it's about what has someone done. The prevention theory is that we should have deterrences, rehabilitation, and incapacitation. It's forward-looking, and it's focused on reducing future crime. And that's the topic that I actually got my doctorate in. It was what are the factors that influence crime and can reduce it? And we call it desistance from crime. Both perspectives are supported by extensive empirical research, and in practice, most sentencing systems blend both. But the balance between them continues to spark intense debate in courts and public policy. All right, last section, text case method in criminal law. Let's talk about how do we study criminal law. In this course, we use what we refer to as text case method. This means you'll study textual summaries of the law. That's the rules and the principles. But you'll also read actual court cases to see how those rules are applied in real life. Why is this important? Because law isn't static. Courts interpret statutes in different ways. The text case method helps you not only understand the law, but also think like a legal professional, to analyze, reason, and argue from precedent. So here are the key takeaways for today. To recap, criminal law is both a system of rules and a reflection of social beliefs. Sanctions vary in type and impact. Classifying crimes has serious consequences. The law comes from multiple sources, not just legislation. And what we choose to criminalize reveals our societal values and its flaws. Theories of punishment reflect deep philosophical divides. And finally, learning law means diving into both statutes and real cases. All right, one more point. If you are pursuing a career in legal studies, law enforcement, forensic law, that sort of thing, or those sorts of tracks, just know that this is a key course. This is a foundational course for any bachelor's degree program in criminal justice, criminology, or legal studies. So you have chosen the right course to sign up for and to take if that's a track you're going for. If, though, you are just interested in this topic, this can be a good elective. And hopefully it'll also empower you as a community member to better understand how the legal system works. So either way, I'm glad you're here. Let's enjoy this term together. I look forward to the next 10 weeks. Thanks.